The crystalline spires of Vareth Prime gleamed under three suns, casting prismatic shadows across the imperial palace. Empress Zaraketh stood on her observation deck, her chitinous armor reflecting the dying light of the binary stars. Below her stretched an empire of 600 worlds, each conquered through superior technology and ruthless military precision. And beside her, looking painfully out of place, stood David Romano, her human consort. "You are troubled again, little one," Zaraketh said, her mandibles clicking with barely concealed amusement. At 9 feet tall, she towered over David's 6-foot frame, her 4 arms crossed in a gesture the court had learned meant dismissal. David studied the tactical display hovering before them, his dark eyes scanning the fleet positions along the outer rim. "The Korthax Dominion has breached the neutral zone. 3 colony worlds have gone silent in the past cycle. And this concerns you." The Empress's laughter was like wind chimes made of glass shards. "Let them posture. The Korthax are insects compared to Vareth military might." "They've never been this coordinated before," David insisted, pointing to the holographic map. "Look at the pattern, these aren't raids. This is a systematic advance." Zaraketh's closest advisor, General Thexner, chittered from across the chamber. "The human worries like a hatchling fears shadows. Perhaps his primitive instincts sense predators that do not exist." The court erupted in clicking laughter. David had grown accustomed to this, the constant mockery, the thinly veiled contempt. He was a curiosity, a pet from a backwater world that had barely achieved interstellar flight when the Varath found them. That he had caught the Empress's eye during a diplomatic mission remained the subject of endless speculation and crude jokes. "David," Zaraketh said, her tone softening slightly, "you are here because you amuse me, because your species' art and literature intrigues me. But military strategy, leave such matters to those evolved for war." He wanted to argue, wanted to tell them that humanity had survived ice ages, world wars, and nuclear brinkmanship, that his species had clawed its way to the stars through sheer stubborn determination. But he'd learned that with the Varath, words meant nothing. Only action mattered. "As you wish, Empress," he said quietly, bowing his head. That night, alone in his quarters, David accessed the military network using codes Zaraketh had given him. Not for strategy, she'd insisted, but so he could read their historical texts. He pulled up every report from the outer rim, every sensor log, every intercepted communication. What he found made his blood run cold. The Korthax weren't just attacking, they were testing. Each strike probed Varath defenses, analyzed response times, identified weaknesses. And they'd found a critical one. The Varath's quantum communication network, which controlled their entire fleet, had a single point of failure. A massive relay station orbiting Vareth Prime itself. If that station fell, the fleet would be blind and deaf, unable to coordinate across light years of space. David spent 3 sleepless nights modeling the Korthax advance. Every simulation came to the same conclusion. Within 2 weeks, they would launch a massive assault on Vareth Prime. The Empire wouldn't see it coming until it was too late. He presented his findings to Zaraketh at the morning Strategic Council. "Impossible," General Thexner declared before David had even finished. "Our intelligence shows no such buildup. The human sees phantoms." "Your intelligence is exactly what they want you to see," David countered, projecting his analysis onto the main display. "They've been feeding you false data through compromised relay stations. Here, here, and here." He highlighted 3 nodes. "These facilities were captured intact 3 months ago. They've been using them to manipulate your sensor networks." "Preposterous," another advisor shouted. "Human arrogance knows no bounds." But Zaraketh was silent, studying the data with her compound eyes. "This pattern," she said slowly, "it resembles the Korthax assault on the Drevian Confederacy, centuries ago." "A war your empire only read about in history texts," David said. "But humans, we fought countless wars on our own world. We know deception. We know desperation. The Korthax are desperate. They're being pushed by something worse behind them, and they need your territory to survive. Even if this fantasy were true, Thexner hissed, what would you have us do? Abandon our positions based on a human's guesswork. Reinforce the relay station, David urged. Move the Third Fleet to high orbit. Prepare for. A klaxon shattered the debate. Red light flooded the chamber. Massive quantum signature detected, a technician screamed. Korthax fleet emerging from hyperspace. Estimate, by the ancients, estimate 12,000 ships. The chamber erupted in chaos. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to tear open as the Korthax armada materialized. A swarm of angular warships bristling with weapons that had been designed for one purpose, to kill Varath. All fleets defensive positions, Zaraketh commanded, her voice cutting through the panic. Activate the planetary shields. But David was already moving. While the Varath scrambled to respond, he ran, not away from danger but toward it. Through the palace corridors, past confused guards, into the military command center that civilians were never meant to see. Human, you cannot be here, a security officer shouted. The relay station is the target, David yelled back. They're going to hit it first. As if to confirm his words, a squadron of Korthax bombers broke from the main fleet, burning toward the relay station at impossible speeds. Interceptors won't reach them in time, the tactical officer reported, her voice breaking with fear. David's mind raced. The Varath had superior technology, but they'd become dependent on it, predictable in their responses. The Korthax had studied them for years, knew every defense protocol, every countermeasure. But they didn't know humans. Give me control of the defensive satellites, David demanded. What? You have no authorization. Do it, the command in his voice, honed through years of leading research teams on Earth, made the officer comply before she could think. David's fingers flew across the interface. The Varath had designed their defenses for maximum efficiency, precise firing solutions, calculated trajectories, minimal energy expenditure, beautiful in its mathematics, and completely predictable. David threw the mathematics out the window. He fired every satellite at once, not at the bombers, but at empty space around them. He overloaded power cores beyond safe limits, creating cascading explosions that filled the orbital path with debris and radiation. He used missiles not as weapons but as shields, detonating them in patterns that would make a Varath admiral faint from their wastefulness. It was chaos, it was inefficient, it was messy. It was human. The Korthax bombers, their targeting systems overwhelmed by the interference, their pre-programmed attack runs disrupted by the unpredictable debris field, scattered. Half were destroyed by the random explosions. The others broke off, their approach ruined. The relay station survived. And with it, Varath command and control remained intact. Third Fleet enveloped their left flank, Zaraketh's voice echoed across the network, her tactical genius finally able to coordinate the defense. Seventh Fleet mined their retreat vector, all carriers launch fighters. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Korthax had numbers, but the Varath had coordination, because one human had bought them the time they needed. When the last enemy ship fled into hyperspace, 12,000 attackers had become fewer than 2,000. David stood in the command center, exhausted, as Zaraketh entered. The entire staff bowed. She walked past them all, straight to the human who had saved her empire. "You knew," she said quietly. "I recognize the pattern. My species has seen it before in our own wars. We mocked you. Yes. Called you primitive. Yes." Zaraketh's mandibles opened wide, the Varath expression of profound respect. "We were fools. Your species may lack our technology, our evolution for combat, but you have something we lost millennia ago, the ability to adapt, to think beyond programming and protocol. She placed one of her 4 hands on his shoulder. You saw what we could not because you are not bound by what should work, only by what must work. General Thexner approached, his armor scorched from directing the fleet battle. He performed the full genuflection, something David had never seen a Verath do for a non-Verath. "Forgive my blindness, strategist David," the general said, using a title that made the human's eyes widen. "Your warning saved billions. Your tactics saved our fleet. I would be honored to learn from your unconventional wisdom." Within a month, David Romano became the first human appointed to the Verath Strategic Council. His methods, chaotic, wasteful, unpredictable, were studied and adapted. The Empire learned to think like prey that had become predator, to embrace the creative destruction that humanity had perfected through millennia of warfare. And every new officer in the Verath military learned the same lesson that Day had taught, that the measure of a species is not in their technology or their evolution, but in their will to survive, their capacity to adapt, and their courage to stand alone when everyone else has already surrendered. Zaraketh still towered over David. Her species was still stronger, their technology still superior. But when she looked at her human consort now, she saw not a curiosity or a pet. She saw an equal, and perhaps something even more precious, a reminder that in the cold mathematics of the cosmos, it was often the variables that refused to fit the equation that made all the difference.